Hola, hola amigos, bienvenidos a nuestro canal Más Urbano TV, donde encuentras lo más urbano.
All right. We're going live right now. Can you guys hear me? Today we're gonna go. We're gonna start DJing at 7, but before that, we're gonna do a little Q&A. I'm gonna speak to my friend David, who's gonna come online in a minute, who works at MIT, and we're gonna have a little discussion about everything that's going on right now, social distancing, and what you can do to help this situation resolve. And we're gonna take questions from you guys. I think you guys are probably getting a lot of conflicting messages from the media, and I feel like it's important to have someone that, you know, we're not experts, but at least we could have a collaborative conversation about this right now. So we're gonna go ahead live. I gotta find his request though. Let's see. Gotta view it and see what we got here. Here we go.
Yo, what's up?
Hi guys, hi everybody.
Wes, how are you, brother?
I'm good, man. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. I'm coming at you from the Boston area. Really thrilled to be here. My name is David Sun Kong. I'm the director of the Community Biotechnology Initiative at the Media Lab at MIT. So I've got a lot of technical awareness of what's happening with the coronavirus pandemic. And just to say, you know, I'm not an epidemiologist or a virologist, but, you know, I've got a PhD from MIT and have been following this closely for many, many weeks. So Wes, really appreciate you having me here and just being able to vibe out for a little bit on this topic that's so important for everybody in the world right now.
100%. I know Dave for a long time. We met actually through music. He does an amazing stuff with biology and music technology at MIT. And I know he's been kind of talking to me about this situation for the last week or two. He's been following it since he heard about the situation in China, and he's been really aggressive in trying to re-educate people on ways to work together to sort of come with a conclusion for what we're doing with the virus. So he's going to give us a little bit of, I'm going to play dumb, and I'm going to ask the questions that you might ask, the basic questions about what's happening. I know Boston was actually hit pretty hard in the beginning stages. Yeah. And I think it actually stemmed from some conferences that were speaking about some of the viruses too. I think some people were there, maybe at one of the Ivy League schools. And I think, but we don't know how it was the transmission was done really early. Like it could have been a month ago, you know, when it first entered your city and you never even heard about it. And it just kind of like is sitting there. And now we're having all these multiple cases we're hearing about day by day. I know David told me, like, when you talked to me last week, you said the cases are going to double every 5 days. So you add that up, 1 turns into 2, turns into 4, turns into 8, turns into 16. That's like goes to Italy numbers where we have almost like, you know, 50,000 people now. And that's just who's been tested. So maybe Dave can give us a little insight onto the numbers and what that means for us.
Yeah, exactly. So, you know, I think you're right on, brother. I mean, one of the huge issues about this is that it's an exponential disease. So again, just what you're saying, 2, 4, 8, you know, 16, 32, that doesn't sound very big. But once you start getting to like 1,024, and then you keep doubling and doubling, you get hundreds of thousands, and then you're getting to millions. And that's exactly what you've seen in Italy. That's exactly what you've seen in China, Iran as well. And so, you know, for us in the US, we're really starting to see that spike happen. And part of what's even tougher in the US is that we have so little testing available right now. So one of the most important factors of what's happening in the world, in particular in South Korea, like South Korea has been able to get a handle on things much better because they have such widespread testing. Like per capita, they've got the most testing of any country in the world.
Why do they have so many? Where are the tests coming from? Why don't we have any tests here in America yet?
Man, that's a great question. So there's a bunch of reasons, as far as I can tell. So there's bureaucracy reasons, right? There's the Center for Disease Control in the U.S. Has particular rules around who can do tests and who can't do tests. And so it took a little while for those rules to get relaxed so that folks like private laboratories could get involved. And so you could really expand the testing that's happening in the US. And a big part of it's also supply chain, right? To run these tests, the gold standard is something called RT-PCR, reverse transcriptase polymerase chain reaction, which is a pretty complicated way, pretty fancy way of saying you're amplifying, you're trying to look for segments of this RNA virus. You're trying to amplify the presence of it and then detect it. And so there's a whole supply chain that's involved. And you may have heard some of this, like, you know, people literally are like running out of like the cotton swabs that you need. So there's a whole series of like steps that are important in getting the test. And so if you don't have any of those parts, then the whole thing can fall apart. So for example, in the Boston area right now, and even in the US broadly, there's this thing called an RNA extraction kit. It's basically the thing that, you know, after you sample your throat or your nose, you need to take that sample and purify that. And there's a kit that people use for that, and that kit is like not very available right now.
Right.
So there, for all of these different reasons, you know, we have not been able to ramp up testing to where it needs to be. But if we did, and hopefully again, every single day, you know, it's getting better and better. Once we get the testing high enough, then we can start getting to a place where we know what's going on, right? You know, some of the politicians have been saying it's like, you know, it's like where you know, you're fighting a fire blindfolded. You know what I mean? It's like you just don't know where the fires are right now. So that's part of why what's going on in the US, you kind of have to assume that anybody that you meet has it, right? Because you just don't know who does and who doesn't. Which is the other kind of huge part about this, which I think you know, Wes, again, you've been doing an awesome job of just spreading the word as well. You can be asymptomatic. Like you can, right, after you get the infection, after your exposure, you know, for the median right now, there's a study from Johns Hopkins, 5 or 6 days it takes for the symptoms to show up. So that means, let's say you get exposure and now you're infected. For 5 or 6 days, you could be walking around and infecting other folks and not know that you have it because you don't have symptoms yet, which is part of why this thing is so widely to track down, and part of why the South Korean case has been so effective, because they're testing so widely. If you know somebody in your household has symptoms, boom, immediately you go get a test. And if you test positive, all right, now I know to isolate myself and stay inside.
So are we going to be able to expedite these testing, you think, soon, or is it like a waiting game?
Yeah. So this is a huge part of it, man. It's like what we need more than anything right now is time.
Right.
Like I'm a part of the research community, and it's like I'm a part of these calls, and you can just see how much research and how much work is going into the development of diagnostics, treatments, vaccine. All of it is moving faster than almost anybody has seen in these spaces, because we're all devoting our collective energy and creativity and innovation towards it. So again, there's incredible diagnostics that are coming that could dramatically reduce the amount of time it would take to, you know, get a test and get information on it. There are home tests that are coming, but we need time, which goes back to, you know, what you brought up at the very beginning around social distancing. I kind of prefer the term physical distancing, which is, you know, slowing down.
You're just saying in the meantime, that's the only thing that we can do effectively, because every politician, whether it's our state politician or our government, they're giving us conflicted messages, and some places have been in lockdown, like San Francisco. I know we just had an announcement from Mayor Garcetti in LA that they have a lockdown in the city now in LA, but it's not mandatory. It's not enforced, but you should stay home, because that's the best we can do in the meantime. Because we have to, if you haven't heard the term flatten the curve yet, you can Google it, and David can give you like kind of like tell you what that means in our own language. But I'll try to explain it to you, so I can see if I got it right. You can correct me if I'm wrong.
Go for it.
So basically, there's a line that's our healthcare system, right? So if you live in a town and you have 50 hospital beds that have respirators, because this is a respiratory disease, it's never at capacity. It probably has like 30 people there or whatever. With a surge of this disease, you only have those 50 beds for the entire city. And if you have 1,000 cases in your city now, only 50 beds are available, right? But the idea is that there's only a few cases in your city, 50 at a time, maybe 40. You want to keep that level low so people can get in that hospital and out quickly. Because if you go spike up to like 1,000 cases, everybody's going to be in serious conditions because they cannot get to the hospital. We don't have enough beds, and it's going to make our healthcare system completely explode, and we can't handle that. So the idea is to keep as many people from being sick for the longest amount of time, and maybe it might be longer. It might be a longer situation. We might be quarantined for like 6 months. This disease might take a long time to pass through our country, but it's better than it spiking huge, which is like, if you see the numbers. I mean, I've watched that COVID-19 map, the sick map, which is it's actually not even the right numbers, because we're not even testing anybody in America. But you watch like China, which peaked at 80,000. You watch Italy, which is at 40,000. And it's probably gonna be 50,000, maybe 60,000 tomorrow. And America's right there now. We're at like at 15,000. That's only with the test that came back. You know, I would just guess that there's probably, you know, maybe somewhere between like 100 to 500,000 people in America that have this disease walking around with it. Probably more. I mean, I know like 10 NBA players that have it, you know, Tom Hanks. I don't know him physically. I know friends that are in the music industry that have this. So I know that the number seems low to you on paper, but these numbers are not all being documented properly when you see those numbers. And I think that's what you're trying to tell people.
Yeah, you got it right, exactly. Because we don't have enough testing yet, we just don't know the numbers. And for sure, part of what's going to happen too, as the testing capacity ramps up, the numbers are going to spike even higher because we're now starting to finally count the cases that have been walking around that we didn't even know about, right? Like South Korea, because they've been doing so much testing, their numbers are probably pretty close to accurate to the actual number, but we are just wildly off. We have no idea what's going on right now in the US. So
in South Korea, the numbers are only, I think the numbers were like just under 10,000. And they seem to be on the new cases are getting smaller and smaller. So that gives you a sense that it's possible to get through this, because right now we're only seeing the very beginning in America, but it seems like everybody's preparing us for this long, excruciating, terrible situation, which I know it could be, but there is a light at the end of the tunnel. When you see what China has done and now Korea has done, there is possibility for us to overcome this if we work together, because that's what they did in those countries.
Yeah, exactly. I think, you know, you said a couple of things that are really valuable. Like working together is huge. I think this is like a solidarity moment. You know, the virus doesn't care about your ethnicity. It doesn't care about your political affiliation. It doesn't care about what country you're in. Like this virus is coming for all of us. You know, like literally every human being on planet Earth. And so our ability to come together, share data, share information, share resources. Again, right now we're in a situation where we got all of our healthcare warriors at the front lines. They need masks. They need protective gear. So, you know, right now, again, this is another part of the message. You know, every single one of us, every single one of you that's listening to this live right now has a role to play in what's happening, right? If you want to do exactly what Wes was saying, if you want to flatten that curve, you need to do your part to make sure that the infection is not spreading and that you are not a carrier. Again, you might be a healthy young person. I mean, you know, the folks that are in the NBA, you know, a lot of the people are reporting, though, like, I tested positive. I had no idea. I had no symptoms, right? So you kind of got to assume that you have symptoms if you're out there in the world, right? So that's why you got to stay, ideally you stay at home right now.
I have a friend that's in the music industry, and he's only 29, and he was near death because he couldn't get any test, and he had an x-ray in his chest, and it was severe, and he was walking with it for 12 days until he finally couldn't breathe anymore. And he got he actually got a respirator privately to have at his house because they wouldn't let him in the hospital. And he's on the up and up now, but he like really hit like rock bottom, he told me, and he's only 29 years old. I've been avoiding my children's house. I live with a grandmother who's 70, just because if the virus is in that house, she's very, very vulnerable. But even young people, they don't understand to think they can beat the virus, because the reports are that 80% aren't affected. But I read earlier today that just means you have, even if you're asymptomatic, I think that you can still not know you have it, and then 10 days later you can be fully affected by this, to where another girl I know in Belgium is only 23. She says she's home because they don't have any more space in the hospitals in Belgium, and she feels like there's like a weight on her chest right now. She's only 23 years old, and she's actually not allowed to go to the hospital unless she's old or she physically can't breathe anymore. So she's waiting it out. That's very dangerous. I can't imagine having to do that.
Oh yeah, I mean, this is not something you want to get at all. I mean, even if you're young and healthy, this is not something you want to get at all. Exactly to your point. And again, you know, part of some of the early studies are showing the hospitalizations for the young people. This is a CDC report that just came out yesterday. It's still really significantly high. Like, even if you get it, the likelihood that you're going to need to be in a hospital and get that respirator, get that oxygen, and, you know, again, worst cases, get like intubated and have some really serious respiratory issues, still really, really high. Like, you don't want to mess with this thing. And, you know, to Wes's point, I mean, you know, even if you do well with it, think about all of the people in your life that matter to you, that are elderly, that are immune compromised, that are people that are likely to die if they get it, right? And so there's those people, but then to Wes's point, right? If there's so many infections happening all at the same time, then even if you are young and healthy, and if you would get better, if you got to the hospital and got some oxygen and got a respirator, there might not be a bed for you, right? What happens then? Right? And that's what we're seeing in Italy. Italy, the mortality rate is so high because their healthcare system is basically collapsing. They don't have enough beds for the people that are there. So literally, doctors are put in this position of making decisions about who gets the ventilator, right? Is it going to be grandma, or is it going to be the 20-year-old kid? And in Italy, they're literally right now, if you're an elderly person and you need more severe care, you're just going to die. They're literally just going to let you die because they can take care of the young person, not you.
Someone just asked in the thing, what's the incubation period? 14 days. I think that it depends. Maybe you can answer that. We can take some other questions, but that was a question.
Yeah. So this was again, the other thing I think that's really important right now is there's so much misinformation out there. So for anybody that is watching this, do not share the random meme that you found with a bunch of facts and a bunch of things that like somebody said, right? Like right now, even the researchers and the scientists at the front line, they're still sifting through all the data and trying to make sense of everything. Okay, so you really got to lean on authoritative reporting. So, you know, if the CDC in the United States, the National Institute of Health, again, trust, you know, your journalists that are doing really, really good reporting at the front lines. Because right now there's so much misinformation. Now, that said, to your point about the incubation question, the John Hopkins study is really kind of the main study that people are looking at right now that shows that the median time for symptoms to show is 5 to 6 days, right? So you get it, 5 to 6 days later, you're going to have symptoms. Now, that can be longer for some people, right? It could be 10, 11 days, but the median is 5 to 6 days. So that's what it is right now for your symptoms to appear. But again, from 0 days to 5 days, you're still shedding virus and you're still infectious, right? Which is the huge part. You're carrying it and you don't know it. Right?
One person just asked, does Advil actually? I think there's a question like some of the drugs that you would take normally at a hospital that you would get for the flu, like Advil or ibuprofen, actually doesn't work at all or makes the symptoms worse.
Yeah.
Is that true?
So great question. So the WHO, there's been some studies that are looking at anti-inflammatory medications and whether or not that makes COVID-19, which is the disease, does it make it worse? Again, I would let things settle down a little bit first, right? There still needs to be more study. There still needs to be more research. A lot of the initial studies that you're seeing. So, for example, Trump right today, you know, was talking a lot about this malaria antiviral, right? That has shown some promise. And again, there's all of these kind of initial studies. They're good pointers, but we need more research to go before we can really say with confidence. So, I think the anti-inflammatory part, ibuprofen, et cetera. You know, there's some indications that it could be bad for, it could exacerbate COVID-19, but, you know, again, I would caution and make sure that the research is really catching up before we make, really strong claims.
Like and Peachy asks, does Molly cure Corona? I would say probably not. But valid question. I mean, you know, everything, you know, but you can always research with that, I'm sure, but I think it probably, Diplo, don't touch your face. I just washed my hands, guys. I went and I already did it. So I'm touching my face because it's what I want to do. So I have something for you guys to look at, but thank you for that advice.
Hey, but you know, that shows that your followers are woke to this. You know what I mean? They're saying don't touch your face, which is huge. And people, do you know why don't touch your face? It's because the virus, right, it typically persists in these droplets that, you know, if they get it into the mucous membranes in your eyes and your nose and your mouth, that's how you typically get the infection into your body. So that's why you don't touch your face. I don't know if I've done it so far in this live, but I feel like
I've been noticing. I've been testing you. You haven't.
You've been testing? Did I fail?
Yeah, I've been looking. Another person asked, is there any foods or liquids we should be drinking that could help prevent this, you know, or anything? One person, I got a news report from the beginning that said, constantly keep your throat wet though. Constantly drink water because the virus does travel with dry air. That you can actually swallow it and not get it into your lungs by going to your stomach. That's something I heard. I don't know if that's true or if that's worth listening to.
Yeah, you know, again, I think the reason to hydrate, which is really, really important, is just good for general health, right? Like I think right now for everybody, you got to do your part to make your immune system strong, right? So this is like getting a good night's sleep, trying to stay calm. I know it's really anxious times right now. So actually one thing, Wes, I'd be curious to hear about from you is like things you're doing to take care of yourself, because people are freaking out. Like, you know, people are really, really stressed, and rightfully so. It's a very, very stressful time, but you got to take care of yourself and you got to take care of your immune system. So I mean, it's really, really important for that.
Even in this time of the year, it's like sort of like we're at the end of a big flu season. So people would usually get sick around February, March. I think as it ends, their immune system is weak around this time. People are sharing the allergies. We're having colds, having flu. So, I mean, I'm on the road all the time, and I haven't been sick I constantly have like in and out of colds sometimes on tour. But I just think lots of sleep and exercise for me, I'm not sure if that would help with this virus, but I know that in breathing, like practicing in my breathing and trying to get better at that, which I'm not good at, I think that might help me more with my mental health, like learning to breathe better and meditating and things like yoga that are simple just to kind of relax my brain. Because even me, I thought I'm like so tough. I'm like Teflon. I travel all the time. I have like seriously anxiety attacks the last couple of days, you know, thinking about my family, thinking about myself, like reading the news.
Yes.
I got to get up here and DJ for people. And I'm like, man, I don't even have my results back from my test I took just as a precautionary tale. I have the same kind of issues people would have. So I'm not immune to that either, you know. And I have people in my house sometimes here working with me, helping to get these live streams. I'm worried about them. You know, they can contract the virus and share with me, but I'm hoping that, you know, we're doing the right work here. But I think that's one thing people don't know, that it's okay to have anxiety. I think a lot of people are still not aware of the severities of this. People still are partying a spring break, and they're still you know, enjoying their lives. They don't realize that this is actually coming in a big tidal wave right now.
Yeah, I mean, I think there are two audiences that you're talking about, right? One audience is the folks that like still aren't getting the message. And it's so funny, you know, you and I were probably like close to the same age, where it's like we got parents that, you know, are elderly that you're trying to take care of, and then you got kids that you're worried about. And like both demographics are kind of like not listening, right? Like I have so many friends, it's so funny. It's like they're trying to get their parents to stay home, and their parents are like, no, I gotta go live my life. I gotta go do my thing. And it's like literally the same thing that like the teenagers are saying right now too, you know?
There's a lot of good questions on here. I'm looking at Danny Days Carnage, who asked me, can you get it twice? And I talked to my friend who just had it and got over it. He told me that, you can probably answer this better, is that you can get it, but the same strain, you can't get it again, but you can get it again with a different strain. And this thing is mutating quickly. So it's possible to get it twice. Is that true?
Yeah. So the virus is definitely mutating. So that's why every year you get a different flu shot, right? Because the flu is also circulating in the population and mutating, right? So now again, I want to be cautious about this too. The studies that I've seen, there's been a few kind of stories of that, but I would wait for some more authoritative studies to come out that are really looking at whether or not the reinfection is happening, right? Because some of the folks that maybe did get reinfected, it could have been they got released with a test that was faulty, right? So again, this is where again you really want to just take, and this is why we need time, right? This is why flattening this curve, staying at home, isolating, and just doing that is so important, because the research, we need time to like really understand the facts, really get the facts straight. We need time for all of these diagnostics to come online, for all these amazing therapies to come online. Like once we have for me, it's like once you have a really good therapy, like if you know that if you get it, you go to the hospital and then you take antiviral X, it's gonna make your case get much better, right? Amazing, right? So now we've just done another thing to help flatten that curve. But we need that time for the research community to tool up and really do their work and get these medicines, get these diagnostics out to the public.
We got a good question. Amber Rose asks, how long do you think you have to stay inside? A few months, a year? I think for now, we're gonna have to stay inside till we see the statistics change, because we can't control anything. I think you might answer that better, but there's no actual resolution to this until but the longer we stay inside, the better chances we have. Because as soon as everybody's like kind of actually social distancing is when we start to fix this, I think. Because before that, it's just, the numbers aren't coming back. It's chaos still.
Well, so it's two things, right? It's the numbers coming down, but the real numbers coming down because testing is widespread. Right. So again, look at South Korea. Again, I keep going back to them, but they've done such a great job. Like in South Korea, they're a democracy like us. Like they didn't have to go through like hardcore, really harsh like lockdown like they did in China. And, people are still able to live their lives for the most part in South Korea, but because they have so much widespread testing, right? So it's like you get a little fire, oh my God, this person's got it. Then boom, you test everybody around them. You get all the asymptomatic people. It's something called contact tracing, right? So like, if I know that I had it, then I think back to like, what happened over the past 5 days? Who did I talk to? You go find those people and then you test them. Right.
And if you can't see the fires, you're like walking around blind. It's like a firefighter wouldn't do that.
Exactly. So I think it's going to be two things. One, the number of measured cases going down. But two, once we actually have super widespread testing, then we'll be able to really get control of things much better, because people can go back and living their lives, still being cautious. And again, hopefully at that time as well, there's some known antivirals that are out there in the hospital, so the treatments are better, right? So that's why we just need time, right? I mean, the next couple of months are going to be really tough. And, again, I just want to emphasize too, shout outs to all of the healthcare workers, all of the medical professionals, all of the nurses, a nurse in your life, a pharmacist, a doctor, like every single one of those folks is at the front lines right now. They are doing their jobs to protect us, and we got to do our jobs to help them too. Right. So ways that we can help and support their families. If you got a loved one that's in that position, You know, this is where they need your support more than ever, because
Right.
they're the ones that are literally saving lives and literally protecting the entire planet right now, are those folks.
David, we're going to start. DJ said, I'm going to save this chat, put it on my story, and send it to you. And I think we can do this again in a couple of days. There's a lot more questions. People asking things like, does masks help? I think that helps. For anything else, it helps to keep you from spreading it and keep from touching your face. But that's the most important thing, is to keep you from spreading that, because that's the things that are coming out of your mouth. That's where the things are coming.
Yes, yes, brother. Cool.
All right, man. I'm gonna save this.
Yo, Wes, yeah, this was great. This was great. Thank you for using your platform to spread awareness. Just before we go, I just want to give a hashtag to y'all. Hashtag beat the virus. This is something. It's a campaign that we're doing. It's an awareness campaign. Each day we're trying to spread a message to the public about an action they should be taking. So check that out. Beatthevirus.org. Hashtag beat the virus. And Wes, bro, once this calms down, man, we're gonna make some music together too. All right.
And I will tell you guys when we're gonna do this again. Everybody's asking Cat Power SC. We're gonna ask when it's happening again. I'll post it, and me and Dave will talk again soon. So I'm gonna go ahead and start DJing.
Yeah,
and
get it, brother. Thank you for what you're doing for everybody too, keeping us dancing and keeping us moving. All right.
I'll talk to you guys later.
All right. Thank you, my guy.
Bye,
Peace.
guys.
Bye.